Here's another one of those stories lost in history. But that's okay. With us learning about this guy, we breathe a little bit of life back into his name. There's a saying, you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and a second time when somebody says your name for the last time. So let's get started on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. W.Elmer Callaway was born April 4th, 1875 in Delaware, but he spent most of his life in New Jersey. There is nothing written about him anywhere, no books, and I really only found one family tree on Ancestry with him listed. Lucky for us, he left a nice paper trail. He's listed in the 1880 census at age 5, but there's no story there, so we'll keep moving on. He would have been listed in the 1890 census, but for those who don't know already, most of the 1890 census records were destroyed in a fire in the National Archive building in 1921. There were some fragments that survived, but I was just reading that in December 1932, following standard federal record-keeping procedures, the chief clerk of the Bureau of the Census sent the Librarian of Congress a list of papers to be destroyed, including the original 1890 census schedules. Now, why would he do that? The librarian was asked by the Bureau to identify any records which should be retained for historical purposes, which I would think should be all of them, and it goes on to say that the librarian did not accept the census records. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. But it goes on to say, Congress authorized destruction of that list of records on February 21st, 1933, and the surviving original 1890 census records were destroyed by government order by 1934. I am still just shaking my head at that one. I knew they were destroyed in a fire, but I didn't know all that. So moving on, even though we don't see a record of it, William Callaway married Alverta Hastings about 1894. So the next time we see Callaway is in 1900 census. He's 26 and he's a traveling salesman. It doesn't say what he's selling. There's records for him for 1904, 05, and 06. He's still a salesman and he lives at 58 Park Street, which is this house. He stays at this residence for a while. This New Jersey census shows him with his wife Alverta, and they have 9-year-old Claude and 2-year-old Helen. And now we're told he's a blacking salesman. Blacking was used to shine shoes or shine stoves or other furniture. Then in 1908, we see he's changed from a salesman to a shoe polisher. And somewhere between 1908 and 1910 is when he starts his shoe polish manufacturing company. And his operations are at 61 Wilkinson, which is this building now. Here's a 1915 New Jersey census. The kids are 19 and 12 now, and he's still manufacturing his shoe polish. In 1917, the World War I registration, it confirms that he owns the business. In the 1918 city directory, it says that he's still at 61 Wilkinson. Here's a route from his house to his business. It was about 5 minutes away. Now we skip ahead to 1925, where he's listed as a furniture and shoe polish manufacturer. The numbering is different on the building, but I think it's the same building. And then, sometime between 1925 and 1927, the family moves to Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is about 30 minutes away from his work. Here's his new home. So we're up to the 1930 census. He's almost 55 now. His daughter still lives with him and his wife, and he's still working. He owns his home, and it's worth about $10,000. It never said if he owned his other home. Maybe he was just renting that other one. So in 1938, he finally shows up in one of these old Google business books, and here he is renewing a trademark for Evershine shoe polish. And it says he's been using it for 2 years now. Here is a few screw top examples from the web. In 1942, His wife Alberta dies at age 67. 5 years later, in 1947, he's still trucking along. His daughter Helen still lives with him, and she works as a stenographer. We still see him working in 1955, and in 1956 he died at age 81. The following year, he's listed in the city directory, and we see now that his son Claude has moved into his house. William outlived his wife by about 13 or 14 years. This guy worked until he was at least 80 years old. That's impressive. There's no telling what happened to the business after he died, but look at this. Maybe someone bought the business? I don't know. It could just be that after a certain time, the patent ended and someone else just started a new product. If the business did end when he died, then he would have been in this business for a total of about 47 years. Think of all those years in the polish business, the experience he had. He could tell you anything you needed to know about shoe or furniture polish. Now, what's interesting is I don't see any advertising whatsoever. No old newspaper ads, no signs. So this doesn't make for a very visual appealing presentation. The internet only has a few samples of these bottles, which makes these pretty rare. Not valuable, just rare. I can only find a few products in his product line. Here's Everwhite shoe dressing. Here's that furniture polish. And my bottle says black oil dressing. This is probably one of his products that he was selling door to door, the blacking, that was used for stove cleaner or shoe polish. My bottle is very crudely made. Honestly, I would have thought it to be older than it is. I would have guessed maybe 1890s for this one. But he didn't go into business until 1908, 1910. This bottle had to have been one of his earliest ones. It's blown in a mold. It has an applied lip, which means after it was blown into the mold, the bottle maker would have applied a little extra glass to form the lip. See how irregular it is? Look how it's round on one edge and pointy on the other edge. I love the look and the feel of the whittled glass on the sides. What collectors call whittled glass is actually a result of being blown in a mold that wasn't warmed up yet. The steel or bronze mold was colder than the glass that was being put in it, so it created all these little ripples and irregularities. I actually love it when that happens though. Well, that's it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.